Hi, in this video I want to discuss mystery, how a lot of us apply our own personal mysteries and the idea of something beyond our understanding to the world around us and how we want to perceive things. Obviously, a lot of us want to perceive a mystery beyond our understanding, something that's beyond the veil, a curtain beyond the curtain, but the curtain beyond the curtain is some kind of special curtain that leads to some kind of abyss that leads to some kind of special place that never ends, which have its own unique space around every corner. Which is more than just space, but the space beyond the space where we can move in between the bends, or whatever it may be, applying the same ideas that we have in this reality and applying it just tenfold in the same reality. Say there's a bend inside the bend. That's how complicated we are. There's a bend inside the bend. There's a wrinkle inside the wrinkle. There's not some kind of extra like understanding. There's not an extra thing going on in the wrinkle. It's just a wrinkle inside the wrinkle. Just add more wrinkles, and that's really all you can get. That's as complicated as you can get. You just add more wrinkles inside the wrinkles. You open the wrinkle and you see another wrinkle. Just add an extra layer, and that's all you have to do, at least to satisfy our minds, or at least that's all the way you can reasonably logically think about something getting more complicated or more interesting or more beyond the veil, beyond the understanding. Just add more to it, and that's the only way it really works. Or you just say there's a mystery and we can't explain it. There's a fourth dimension, but the fourth dimension doesn't work anyway like this dimension works. Pleasure, pain, this, that, and the other thing. The dichotomies that, regardless of what dimension you're in, the only dichotomies that exist, regardless, the good and the bad, are going to exist on a different level, even though the good and the bad are the same regardless. The good and the bad. And the good is relying on the elimination of negative. No matter how fifth dimension you get, those are the only two dichotomies that exist. The good and the bad, there's not anything else, so there's either good or bad or nothing. There's nothing beyond that, and you can say, well, beyond it, oh yeah, you can have something more. Well, no, I don't think you can, because on the those are the extremes. Those are the ways that you describe something. Those are the general statements of reality that we're discussing. There's either you're not existing, there's nothing, or there's good or bad. And if you're not existing, then there's nothing to care about or be concerned about. So it's either good or bad or nothing, which is good. You're reaching the good, and that's really just good or bad. The ultimate relief of pain. There's only bad, and we eliminate that bad. And you want to. That's pretty much a simplification. You want to simplify it. There's only bad, and any good you have is just eliminating the bad. You can say in the other dimension there's only good, and there's only having bad is just eliminating the good. That's just another way of looking at the good bad thing. But the good bad thing is relying on the bad, because you need to eliminate a negative for the positive to happen. So regardless of that, you have your popsicle stick. You're eating your tasty popsicle, and everything that bad happens to you is the elimination of the good. So every time you lose the taste, every time that's not good, it's just losing the negative, losing the positive. It's just losing the positive and the negative. So every time you suck away at your popsicle stick, you're enjoying yourself. Obviously, that's an addiction that's relying on all sorts of irrational connections or whatever it may be, irrational tendencies that we have towards wanting something or desiring something. So obviously that's another thing that we can obviously put on the bad side. But every time you suck on your popsicle stick, every time that you're done with it and you're no longer feeling it or the tension, that's just a bad. That's a bad, and it's just the elimination of the good. Or every time you're feeling just fine, and the nail comes into your foot, or you step on a nail and all of a sudden you're feeling intense pain, that's just the elimination of a good. But the good wasn't there to begin with, it was just feeling okay. So it's about relying on these negative things, because it's based on tension as well. And all these things rely on one another, and when you realize it's a bunch of tensions and addictions, you gotta realize it's a constant thing that's fighting upwards. You're constantly fighting upwards, trying to get around on the other side. And when you get on the other side, there's only another hill to climb up. And you really realize that it's not the good bad thing, but the thing when the good bad is you're going to say the bad takes over the good, because it's based on the tendency to eliminate a negative or to cause a negative. Obviously, we're not trying to cause a negative. So if we're trying to cause a negative, that doesn't make sense. This negative things happen, but if negative things just happen, that's almost a reasonable thing to explicitly say as to why it's reasonable to think that the negative is the default. There is only negative. And you realize we're not trying to get into a negative if negative is possible. If you're not trying to get into a negative if negative things are possible, you got to realize that the reality we're on is relying on a negative. So if you don't want a negative and the negative happens, you realize that the game is based on a negative as well. But you can semantically describe it any way you want, but it's a realization that it's based on negatives, intentions, and addictions. And whatever good you're feeling, eating your brownie, eating your ice cream, whatever it may be, having sex, getting pleasure, the tensions, obviously tensions are very short-lived through all the tension you have to build up through it. Obviously, the disproportionate amount of tension you have to get in regardless of the things that you want to perceive as equal and opposite reactions. The tension you have to go through is, generally speaking, far longer and far greater than the one that you get based on your satisfaction. Well, you can say that, eating your brownie, Obviously, the goods are few and far between as well. But, enjoying yourself, and then when that happens, it's just the elimination of a good. It would be almost a fool's errand to believe in such a thing. Because you had to be addicted to that to begin with, and you had to satisfy that tension because the desire to get a brownie, or whatever it may be, the thing that you need satisfied is based on a tension that was based on a negative that was building up inside you to begin with. So regardless, it's a negative that's working that way regardless because it's based on a tension or a default. And the default is, oh, I feel okay, then all of a sudden you step on a nail. The default that you were feeling was not a good, it was just less pain than you're feeling right now. And you could say, well, that's just the elimination of the good. When the pain comes and that's a negative and it's something that exists there that was waiting for you and you don't want it, and that's the pain, that's the suffering, that's something that feels bad, then obviously that's something that's based on the reality that we're living in. I mean, this is just a different way to start looking at the thing, looking at almost in a devil's advocate sort of way, trying to understand the other side and see if you can manipulate it into a way that other people that believe that can try to find a way and see if they can reach that same conclusion. But I don't know if it's useful or not. But yeah, I mean, basic ideas like that. So, yes, regardless of that, back on to another subject that I want to hit real quick. Yes, it's a negative that we're relying on, and I've just mentioned almost in a devil's advocate kind of way how that can be viewed if you're kind of confused and you can't understand that. But yeah, it's a negative and the elimination of negatives, tensions, all sorts of things like that. It is a negative. It's just an elimination of more negative to get to a better, lesser negative that makes you perceive it as a good. But it's the negative that has more weight. And just because you're not feeling a negative doesn't mean it's a positive. It's just a less negative. And just because you're eating the ice cream right now, or whatever it may be, you're enjoying yourself, it's only there to be satisfied. It's based on attention and satisfaction, based on negative deprivation that you were feeling to begin with, where you can find any satisfaction in eating such a thing. Hunger, any drive that we have based on addiction. All these things are there to be satisfied. They need to be satisfied. Otherwise, you're not going to have hunger to rely on a good feeling. So these things rely on negatives. So the brownie eating is not, and the lack of eating a brownie is not a lack of a good. It's a lack of a lesser negative. It's a lack. It's a lack of a better negative, of a lesser negative. It's a lack of a lesser negative when you're not eating that because you have to rely on a tension or a buildup or whatever it may be to satisfy that desire in you. Just trying to think of another way. I feel like I'm kind of confusing myself. I don't know if I'm exactly hitting the nail on the head when I'm talking about this, but yes, it's relying on a negative. You're not eating the brownie or whatever it may be. The brownie is an action that you're taking to eliminate the negative. So when you're not eating the brownie, it's not like you ate the brownie. It's about that you're eating the brownie to satisfy attention. So it's not like you're doing it. It's an idea in your head, but it's only an idea. And the negative is always there, weighing down on you based on the tension. So it's just an elimination of the tension because the negative is by default there to be satisfied. So that's another way of looking at it, I suppose. So if you're not eating the brownie, that is, or whatever thing that you're trying to satisfy, Obviously, satisfaction, that's another thing. You're trying to satisfy an addiction based on negative deprivation or a hunger that you're having or whatever, maybe an addiction. So that's another way. So based on that, not having the brownie or whatever it may be, not having your ice cream, not having your meal, not having your sweet, not having your good time, doesn't mean a lack of a good. Not having your good time does not mean a lack of a good. Does not mean a lack of a good. It just means a lack of a lesser negative. Um, because the good time you're having is based on the negative, based on things that have value. You can understand their value, realize that the negative is something rather escape. Anytime you're feeling negative, um, I think I've covered everything, and I'm just trying to figure out something else to say. I don't know, but I'll try one more time to see if I come up with anything else. When you're lacking a negative, that does not mean that you're when you're lacking a positive, that doesn't mean you're having a less good. It just means you're having a lesser. There's a lack of a lesser bad. So yeah, that's just a lack of a lesser bad. I don't know. I think I'm just trying to mind twist myself into confusion right now. But yes, it's a lack of a blah blah blah. Anyway, let's move on. So yes, it's either known or to be known. It's beyond explanation. It's a mystery. I guess that's another small part where I sort of deviated to begin with. But yeah, it's either a mystery. If you can understand it, it's no longer a mystery. I've mentioned this before in other videos. A mystery of what's going on here. If it's no longer a mystery, opening the doors, blah 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 blah, wrinkles, this, that, and the other thing. It's something that we can easily understand to have meaning. But yeah, if it's a mystery, then it's a mystery, and then you're never going to solve the mystery. And if it's a mystery to be solved, then you're going to solve the mystery, and therefore it's no longer a mystery. It's no longer a ghost. It's no longer supernatural if it's a ghost. And then I guess it depends on what you describe as supernatural. All of a sudden, ghosts can exist. To use a fantastical example, right? So if you use that, then it's no longer supernatural if you want to use it in that kind of vague sense. It's no longer supernatural based on the fact that you can't explain it. All of a sudden, it's part of the natural world, at least based on our explanation of knowledge, based on what we know. So it's based on what we know. It was always there, but it was based on our definition, based on the words that we give and give meaning to based on those circumstances and what we do and do not know. So I guess that's another way of looking at that mystery thing. But yeah, mystery is only there to be solved, and if it can't be solved, then it doesn't exist. If it doesn't, and it can't be solved, then it's going to remain a mystery. What's the point in trying to solve it? If we realize it's a mystery that can't be solved, when in reality we don't really know that about a lot of these things about the universe. Yes, it's a mystery that can be solved. Because it's there. It's based on a mechanical function. What caused this, that, the other, chicken, the egg, this, that, or the other thing. Obviously, those are questions that can be answered. Generally speaking, it's just a matter of understanding and rationalizing if there needs to be anything more than that in our mind. But yes, there's no mystery, and if there is a mystery, it's a mystery to be solved. Grandiose mystery that can't be solved is kind of just begging the question of what's behind the extra curtain. What's behind the extra curtain? Maybe sometimes it's easier to know that there's just going to be curtains for a long time. And generally speaking, that's a truth that you can understand to a certain extent. There's going to be another curtain. I can guarantee that. A mystery. Whatever mystery there may be. There's nothing here. It's all mechanical processes. We know how everything works. We know the product of the end mystery. The end mystery, we're the product, and we can understand that. Where we came from is the mystery, and the mystery of where we came from is irrelevant. But it's an answer that would be nice to have, but if it's not to be had, we can understand it to a certain extent. It's a mechanical process, and there's no mystery to that. But how everything exactly got stepped into place, got moved into place, can obviously be interesting, but it's irrelevant. Doesn't mean anything that created the product where we are now. There's no cracking open the end device. We know exactly what it's made out of. We know the fundamental aspects of reality, and we can understand that it's going to end in a certain way, and we understand that there's not much we can do about that. There's nothing we can do to change the dichotomy of existence. How things work. It doesn't matter how happy or addicted you are. You're not going to change that fact. It doesn't matter that you're happy, you're still addicted, and there's nothing you can do about it. A lot of these things are the fundamental aspects of reality that can't be changed, and we know the fundamental end, regardless of what you feel like you can change. You're not going to change the fact that things can feel pain. There's value. It's positive and negative, and it's still a negative, a zero-sum game that we're fighting. Zero-sum game, another way to describe that. Um, so yes, um, the mystery would be null and void. It wouldn't mean anything. And if it's a mystery, then what's the point in solving if it's a mystery that can be solved? It's either a mystery or it's not a mystery. In the end, it's a mystery waiting to be solved. And anyway, I think that's all I need to mention. Sorry if I got confused and went on a little too long in this video. So anyway, thank you, and until next time, and if there's anything else to mention, I'll mention in another video. So thank you. Bye.